Imagine my surprise when I woke up one day and read the headlines that Google was producing woke racist images. Now, I had to double click on this. I had to better understand what was happening here. And it turns out that Google, Gemini specifically, Gemini being the Google AI product, has an aversion to the color white, specifically in that consumers were requesting images that were factually displaying incorrect inconsistencies of individuals that were not white. So what do I mean by this? By now we have seen the screenshots and images of people that have been put on X, that have been put on Twitter, that were basically, requesting images of the Pope. And lo and behold, there was a image of the Black Pope. Strike one for diversity over there, and it was an image of a female that was the Pope. And as we know, these two minorities are not necessarily represented as a Pope. Photos of Vikings. I did not know that black Vikings existed, but in another world, this could definitely happen. And just the kicker here: photos of the founding fathers of America. They are images of people that were prompting this, and you had black founding fathers of America. So there's a lot of confusion of the internet. There is a lot of outcry, basically, of individuals that are just not very happy in terms of what Google Gemini is producing, and Google has heard it. We hear you, Google says. This product is now paused. So if you go in Gemini now and request the creation of images, it is on the sidelines. And bravo, Google, bravo. You had to step on some massive damage control on that one because it's pretty damaging for Google. It's damaging to the point that their share price has slid back, and they have been murmurings in Wall Street and in the tech space of basically Google's whole strategy on AI. And for that specifically, I think that's taken a bit too far. And, Google definitely has the upper hand here in terms of their large language models. But let's speak about specifically what is happening in Gemini and what is causing this. To be fair and to be true, DEI, so diversity, equality, and inclusion, is an important thing. I'm not going to say it's not an important thing. Representation matters. The level of representation that I was seeing on these images, to the point of I've seen less Indian representation in a boardroom than the amount of Indians that I've seen in some of these image request queries on the internet. But jokes aside, we cannot have the DEI or the woke ideology thrusted at such a level that accuracy is on the back burner. And simply put it, the articulation and basically the execution of the image creation by Google put exactly that in jeopardy. And I can't help think that a company, guys, we're talking about Google here. We're talking about the arbiter of information in the 21st century. We're talking about Google, guys. The intellectual power of Google is enough to rival entire countries. And all this is to say, how does something like this, how does a kerfuffle like this go into their mainstream product, which is not in beta anymore? They've put it live at the world stage for consumers to use. And that is why this is receiving such outcry. People are saying that this is too woke. This is a symptom of Google. And now that we've seen it in Gemini, in their AI products, how can we trust that this wokeness, whatever you want to call it, I have my own thoughts about, the wokeness that we're seeing around at the moment, should not be thrusted upon us being the consumer, us being the public, but should definitely not be thrusted at the expense of accuracy. And when you say create an image of the founding fathers of America and you're presented with factually incorrect images, how does that happen? How does that happen? How does a company like Google let this through the keepers? How does this go through QC? Like, surely someone checked this, right? To me, when I do a little bit of a research, understand what's out there and see some of the specific queries that are being asked, there's certain levels where people are actually asking for a Caucasian male to be created in an image, and Google is outright saying no, Gemini rather. Like, how does that happen? I don't understand it. It boggles the mind that a company like Google would release a product there, not knowing that eventually something like this would come out to the greater public. And like, I'll be intrigued. I would absolutely be intrigued to understand the first queries and searches that led us down to this conclusion, because it almost seems laughable. It almost seems laughable that something like this is happening to a company as big as Google. And now almost everything about Google is being questioned. The wokeness, the ideology. Is this too much? Is this too much? What about the searches? If your AI product is returning this for images, can I trust anything else it says? Can I trust your core search product? That I'm not having this woke ideology and agenda thrusted down upon us? I mean, these are the questions that people are asking. And fair play. Fair play to us asking here. And this begs the question of artificial intelligence as a whole. Google is simply one player in this. But Google is probably the biggest player in artificial intelligence. And definitely, when it comes to the data sets that they have to train these large language models, how can you say that Google doesn't have the number one perch there? Between Gmail, between search, between YouTube, they effectively have, 90% of the internet? I don't know. And what they've decided, be it deliberately, and a lot of people are going to say, how can it not be deliberately? And I can create very little argument against that because of the evidence that we've seen. And if you go to Gemini now and ask for these image queries, just letting you know, I mean, depending when you're watching this, it doesn't exist. They've paused it. Google's heard you. We're not going to release image creation until this is fixed. What is this? Wokeness. Ideology. Yeah. This is what it's come down to. But let's go back to the conversation pertaining to artificial intelligence. To basically construct what has happened here, Google has got a repository of information on the internet, of which I've just explained here, and they use these to be trained by large language models. But there is an element there, which a lot of people are, calling biases. The woke agenda, DEI. There's a percentage of that that's being massaged into the product. And if you were to see the results that are coming out there, you'd say, heck, 70% of that little ingredient has been massaged in at least that iteration of Google Gemini's search image creation, rather. And this is scary. This is scary to the point of thinking that Google is the arbiter of information in the 21st century. People depend on it. People put queries in there. And if this happened to one element of their AI, has trust been broken? And look, I get it. I'm overemphasizing. I'm being dramatic. Isn't that half the job of the internet? But think about this. This has happened once. A lot of people simply take what Google is saying at face value and don't verify and check it. I mean, you've asked Google. Google is the verification and check for a lot of people. So we've got to be really, really careful in terms of how we consume information on the internet. And we've really got to start having conversations pertaining to artificial intelligence. When you go to a supermarket and you have, just say you have a bottle of tomato sauce or something like that, and you have ingredients listed there. You can kind of see everything in their proportion and that. And this almost has me believing that there needs to be some element of that when it comes to using these artificial intelligence agents, engines, whatever you want to call it. Because right now, I am not too sure that I can believe what's happening there, and what flavor of response am I going to receive? Maybe I like this agenda. Maybe I'm down to it. Okay, I can put the woke patch. The woke patch. But regardless of that, I want to see factually correct information. And this, in essence, is the conversation that we're trying to have. Let's take away race, yes. Unfortunately, in this example of the woke ideology, I actually don't know what to call it, so I'm just going to run with that. It had a severe aversion to white people. I mean, the facts are there, and it was thrusting images or information that was putting that diversity quota, the DEI element, above factual correctness. And that is wrong. We can agree that that is wrong. And that's not necessarily what we want. But this element got created. This got inputted by Google. And again, it boggles my mind that a company of that size, a company of that leadership, allow this to go through. Because it's affecting them. It's definitely affecting them. It's affecting their share price at the moment. And it's asking and posing serious questions of whether Google should be at the forefront of the leadership of the artificial intelligence conversation. Which, surprise, surprise, they are going to be there. By virtue of the assets that they own on the internet, they are going to be up and in front of that conversation. So Google, you have a very important job. You have a very important job. And note this, that consumers will continue to use your products, but you have a duty and obligation of care to ensure that the factually correct information is being presented. And I'm under no illusions that some of these concepts are extremely complicated, pertaining to elections, pertaining to artificial intelligence as a whole. There are some times that I personally think that saying nothing or not being able to say things is maybe not the worst idea. The world is a scary place. The world is a nuanced place. A lot of things are shades of gray. They're not black, they're not white. I get it. People want answers, people want it now, and presumably this is where artificial intelligence is going. We're going to move past chat prompting. And we need to be sure that the companies that are representing the best interests of mankind have their hearts and minds at the correct places. So Google, we await to see what you are going to produce next.